Major label artists aren't always more talented, they're just more experienced. And as independent artists, we can sometimes want the dream so badly that we chase anything that comes across our desk and we think it's going to take us to our dream, and then it becomes a nightmare. As an artist who's been independent for over 10 plus years, I've signed multiple record deals and I've made so many mistakes that I wish I could have avoided, but I just didn't know. I'll never forget when we had the opportunity to sign to a record deal and we did this showcase, and the showcase completely fell apart, okay? It was a nightmare. I brought my hip hop crew into the meeting, embarrassed my friend who set it up. The label didn't want to work with us, and then they ended up signing this other artist, and I was like heartbroken. I thought my dreams were gone, but here's the thing. I had no leverage, and if I had signed that record deal that they would have offered, I wouldn't have owned my masters, I wouldn't have owned my publishing, and I probably wouldn't be teaching you this video today because I wouldn't be making any money from my music, right? And so sometimes we can want it so bad, we'll sign away our future, we'll sign away our integrity because we just think every single opportunity is awesome, and it's not. And what's wild is what we think sometimes is a denial or a delay of our dream, when really God is protecting you. I know He protected me from that not happening, right? And it can be so frustrating. It can be so heartbreaking. I wanted to give up so bad. I was like, forget it. I was like, God, I don't need to do music then. I'll just do my computer job. I'm not like, miserable at my job or anything like that. And I'll just do music part-time. But I felt God still like knocking on my heart. And so we kept on pursuing different labels and relationships and stuff like that. And then I think it was like maybe a couple years later, I finally signed a deal, and it was a much better contract, right? Thank God for the lawyer. So sometimes we can sign that first thing that comes across our desk and messes up so many things. I know so many artists that don't own their mastering, don't own their publishing, right? Which leads me to the next thing is managers. Once we had the record deal, I remember, and it was a decent deal now. It was a licensing deal, so I got all my records back. I wanted to work with this manager. And there's a certain manager, I was like, man, they can blow me up. It'll all work out, and I want to work with them so bad. And they had some other artists that they were working with, and they said no. And I was super bummed out and I was discouraged. Well, fast forward like 5-10 years later, the artists that they were working with, we found out there's some shady deals going on and writing off expenses on the artist's behalf that shouldn't have been doing, basically kind of like almost stealing money. And both of those artists are no longer making music anymore. I don't even know if that manager is in the music industry anymore. And if I had signed with them, again, my wife was saying, God was protecting you. Sometimes we want it so bad, we just quickly sign away anything. We're like, oh, I want to work with them. They're interested. And I remember what it was like early on in my music career, just wanting anybody to believe in me. But I want to encourage you to be patient. Get a lawyer to always look over the contract, and don't just work with the very first guy or gal that just shows a little bit of interest. You want to work with A-level people and work with people that have integrity, have morals, and have a track record. One of the things major label artists really know that independent artists don't know, that I learned by being in the record label system, is album cycles, man. Album cycles, touring cycles, when it's time to market and promote, and when it's time to create and record. They really are good at splitting those. A lot of times you can be on tour and creating and, writing new songs at the same time, but they really understand that when it's time to promote and market, it's time to promote and market. You take off the creative hat for a while and you put on the touring and the promotion hat, okay? Where I find now, with independent artists, it's like we release a single and then we release another single and another one, and we don't even promote any of them. You're just whipping out singles. You're not doing any big promotion or any launch. And the label was so good at having me focus, like turn in these assets, Chris, for this song because we need them for radio. We need the lyric video, the visualizer. We need short form content. Who are you going on tour with? Let it set up these interviews. We're going to radio. We're doing all these things, and we're pushing this album for at least like a year and a half. We're not even talking about a new album until like the record's been out for a year, and giving us a song and an album a chance to fly, giving it a shot. Because I'll never forget that, this one album was crushing it. We were touring. I played over 150 plus shows that year. I barely even saw my wife. When I look at the touring schedule, it's just like, it makes me cry. But you know what? That record sold. It blew up. It was crushing it. And I'll never forget, my ego came into play, and I was like, well, it's time to do a new album, you know what I mean? And I'll never forget the label saying, Chris, man, no, there's a lot more juice left in this album. Let's keep pushing it. Let's keep marketing it, because it's selling like over 500 plus copies a week. And you know what? Fans love the album, and still to this day, it's one of my biggest records. But of course, I'm like, no, we got to do a new one. And I was feeling a little bit of pressure from Japan, because their album cycles are shorter and they wanted a new record. But guess what? I went and did that new record. Didn't do as well in Japan, didn't do as well in the United States, and I should have stayed focused on that one record. There was still so much juice, so much life in that record. Even to this day, it's still crushing it, right? And so I want to encourage you. You got to focus, man. You got to lean into something. My mentor said to me, instead of getting bored with it, I get paid with it. And we get bored so quickly, and we get distracted, want to jump onto the next thing, into the next thing, right? Which leads me to number 3 or number 4 we're on here is radio. I saw all these artists, and I'm just trying to grow, right? Like, I just want to grow my music career. And so I hear about this and I hear about that, but I'm so green and I don't understand things. And I remember being in the label meeting with the president of the label. I'm like, I want to go to mainstream radio. We've had success at Christian, and we're doing this, and I want to go to mainstream radio. And I'll never forget him telling me, dude, it's risky, man. Like, why don't we just lean in on this that's actually proven to sell records and move the needle. This is from someone who's had some experience, who's gone to mainstream radio dozens and dozens of times, gone to Christian radio hundreds of times. He's like, no, let's focus on here. I'm like, no, I want mainstream radio. And so what do? I spend my own money. And we spend thousands and thousands of dollars and, trying to get on radio. And I'll never forget, I was on tour at the same time, and I was telling this other artist who was more experienced than me, I'm like, oh, we got this radio station added it, this radio station added it. He's like, let me see. He's like, okay, these radio stations, it doesn't even matter. Oh, you got this radio station? That's cool. Oh, wow. Octane added you on Sirius XM? That's huge. And I was like, oh, so not all radio stations matter? He's like, no. Some radio stations, man, you could be, paying to play, and they don't sell records. They don't move the needle. And so I'm like paying and spending my money on something that doesn't even really work. And it took me spending probably $80,000 to understand that not all radio stations matter. And now we just focus on specific stations that really move the needle. I learned that, I want to chart on the Billboard charts. Well, we charted on Billboard, and guess what? It didn't sell any records compared to just getting the one radio station that got hundreds of thousands of streams. It made us over $40,000 in just sound exchange royalties. But I didn't know. Another big mistake that I made was touring. Right? Sometimes there'll be certain festivals or opportunities, and it's just like you want to jump on them. It's like, yeah, I want to tour with this person, or I want to tour with that person. And it doesn't even end up working out because you realize not many people are showing up to the shows. It's like, oh, I'm not going to tour with them. Or you go play a festival and you end up crushing it in merch. Maybe the pay wasn't as high, but there was so many people there and they buy merch. And so I learned by keeping this spreadsheet of all the different shows, we would always be like, okay, how many were in attendance? How much merch did we sell? And we would keep track. So when, someone wanted to book us again at a certain festival or event, it's like, oh, well, we crushed it in merch. Okay, the pay wasn't as much. Okay, we'll take that show for that offer because we know it'll work out. Or we learned wow, touring with this artist, we thought it was good, or this event, and it wasn't. But again, why do people perish? For a lack of knowledge. You just don't know what you don't know. The last one I'll share with you is I remember there's a story of someone who had hired Snoop Dogg's publicist. And they were a hip-hop artist, and they were just like, yeah, we want to work with Snoop Dogg's publicist. And because that shiny name was shot out there, or you hear Grammy Award winning, or they've worked with this producer or whatnot, so you think that they're going to get the same result for you. Well, they ended up paying $10,000 plus a month retainer. And the publicist barely got them any press. Okay, $10,000 a month retainer. Okay, I remember we did something similar to that. It wasn't Snoop Dogg's publicist. It was like a company, a promotion company that was kind of tied to Linkin Park. And of course, I love Linkin Park, and so I'm like, oh well, let's work with this person, and they charged us like thousands of dollars for some campaign, and all they did was like organize our email list or send out like a survey to our fans, and it made no money. It did nothing. We could have spent that on YouTube ads, a music video, a feature, touring, better merch. There's so many different things we could have spent our money on, but the best money you can spend on marketing your music is Facebook and Instagram ads, and that's why I made this video series here you can watch right now.